research paper or a PhD thesis. These are the areas in title, executive summary or abstract for paper, executive summary for the thesis, introduction, conceptual frame and literature review, methodology, results. This introduction and conceptual frame at times are mixed, clubbed together. Conceptual frame, instead of going in with the literature review, at times it is included with the introduction, as I will show later. Methodology, what is the research methodology, has to come in detail in a PhD thesis, whereas a brief introduction or a brief mention of methodology in case of research people would do. But for PhD thesis, you have to explain the research methodology in depth. Whatever you have done, everything has to be included. End of discussion, or it is included as a separate chapter. Now we will see each one of them. First part, in fact, this is one of the most important part, title, and we actually devote the least time in deciding the title. We sit down someday and just decide the title, or we go to the guide and guide tells you the title. That is the most important part of research is title, and we take very little time in deciding that, and that creates problems throughout the thesis. I'm giving you a few examples and show. These are the three parts that need to be taken care of while deciding title. The first one is, it says precisely what the research is about. I will show you some titles that are PhD titles and do not indicate anything that is contained in the thesis. Right? So, it should be brief, as short as possible. Right? It should not go beyond 2 lines in any case. As far as possible, it should be in single line. Does not have multiple subclasses. Now, what is multiple subclasses? Now say, you are putting in effect of customer satisfaction, brand image on customer loyalty, a study of, say, banking organizations, that is, colon, a study of banking organizations, colon, a demographic study, colon, something else. Now, these subclauses create confusion in the minds of readers. So, more than one clause, more than one subclause should not be there. At the most, you can have one subclause just to indicate, just to restrict the area for your study. To restrict your area, you can have one subclause, but don't include more than one subclauses. That is, these are some of the titles that I have picked up from some of the research papers in some PhDs. And as I said, it does not make a difference whether you are giving a title to a research paper or a PhD. The only difference would be probably you should spend more time while taking a decision on title for PhD, because the coverage of a PhD title is far more wider than the coverage for the research paper. So you should take far more time while putting on a title for PhD or deciding a title for PhD than a research paper. Impact of customer satisfaction on repurchase intention in banking services. Now, this is a title that includes the three things. In fact, I will show you that in a title there needs to be these three things that we talk about, that it precisely talks about the contents of the research. Okay, whether it's a thesis or a research paper, it should precisely talk about what is contained in that. So what it indicates is that the research paper or thesis would have a relationship between customer satisfaction and repurchase intention, and this study is carried out in banking services. Right? So it tells you what is this study about. And it is precise, It is in the total number of words that are contained is about 10, right? So up to 15-16 words for research paper and up to 20-22 words for PhD are the limit. You can't go beyond that, right? So it adheres to that, okay? And it talks about everything that needs to be there in the thesis. Second title, look at it, Impediments to Supply Chain Effectiveness in Pharmaceutical Industry. Now, we could have looked at, we could have divided the impediments into number of groups, okay? That, like impediments related to communication, okay? Communication between organizations, physical movement, that is physical supply, it could have been negotiations, and so on. So there are a number of areas that actually impediment, that actually affect the supply chain effectiveness in pharma industry or any industry for that matter. So those could have been listed, but then that will increase the size of the title. Plus, when you are listing, you are likely to miss some or the other component. Now it leaves you flexibility. This title, you should also, if you can maintain some flexibility which you can later on utilize, there is nothing wrong with that. Now impediments indicates all impediments. Then later on when you work on, you would find some of those impediments may not be impediments in supply in pharmaceutical industry. There may be impediments in the other areas, but they may not be impediments in pharmaceutical industry. So when you work on your conceptual frame, when you work on your review, you will realize that these need to be dropped. So areas you might have included initially in the topic, you can't drop once you have included a variable in the topic. But if you have not included a variable in the topic, you can drop it later on. Because when you write your synopsis, you need to define what will be included that time. So you can drop that variable you might have been thinking, but you have not included it in the title. Once you have included it in the title, you can't drop it. Tells reader precisely what paper is about. Antecedents to customer loyalty in ready-made garment industry. Again, this paper is again precise because antecedents can be number of. Antecedents to customer loyalty. Because customer satisfaction, quality of products, services provided by the retailer, and so on, you find there are a number of antecedents that affect customer loyalty, and the paper or the thesis is telling precisely in what industry the work has been done. Ready-made garments industry. Okay? As far as possible, do not restrict in PhDs, do not restrict in the title. Do not write at Gwalior, at Madhya Pradesh, at Delhi. Never do it in the title. Do it in the synopsis if you want to. If your PhD work is restricted to a particular area, that restriction you must mention in your synopsis while working on your methodology. And don't put it in your title, because once you put it in your title and later on you realize that you could have collected data from many other places other than Gwalior. You can't do that once you have put it in your title. So never put the area limitation on the title. Okay, so that you have that flexibility and it indicates everything, right? Now these were some of the good titles. Let's look at some of the bad titles also. Corporate sustainability in Indian manufacturing firms, environmental initiatives for enhancing business performance. Actually, whatever the researcher wants is there in this, but when somebody else reads it, you find that this title is measuring two different things. Okay, two different areas. It is including two different areas. First is sustainability, and second it is talking about environmental initiatives taken by the organization. If you want to show a relationship between them, you rephrase it, and that is how you can rephrase. Environmental initiatives for corporate sustainability. That means for corporate sustainability through environmental initiatives. Okay, in Indian manufacturing organizations. There, even there is not there, because this would be, this topic required this. Manufacturing service organizations, because study is entirely different for manufacturing and service organizations. So we had to define which type of organizations the study would be carried out. Right? So therefore, Indian manufacturing organizations has been added, and that is important to add. So wherever it is required, those limitations have to be put in. Alright? So not clear what will be in the paper thesis, multiple possibilities presented in the title. That means the researcher can do whatever way he or she likes. And generally, I have seen that in such cases, the researcher would work on sustainability separately, and he would work on number of factors affecting sustainability, and he would work on environmental initiatives separately. Right. So, and you find the purpose of the research is lost. Right. So the title has to be correctly phrased. That's the first part. Count number of words, lesser is better. Count number of clauses, lesser is better. Does the title accurately describe paper research? And is the title specific? That means, is it giving different meanings to different people? If it gives different meanings to different people, it is not appropriate. It should be revised. Now, this was the part 1 title. We will be working on now abstract. Again, instead of going through these areas, I will work on only these. These are the parts. You can read those. They are also important. You can go through them. What should be included in the abstract, what should not be included is given here. Establish the topic. What should be there in the abstract? Or executive summary? Both. Establish the topic of the research. What is basically research in the thesis or the paper? State the research problem or main objective of the paper. Indicate the research methodology used. Research methods used. Present the main research findings and present the paper's research conclusions. You might think that a small abstract that you write for research paper, can it include all of them? I will show you yes. This is the abstract that I have written for a research paper earlier, and I will show you how they are included. In this. Look at the first part. Event sponsorship was the main focus of this work, and the process of event image transfer to brand image through sponsorship of sports events was evaluated. Now, this part has two parts. One is the topic, the other one is main objective. Look at the first part, event sponsorship and transfer of image, event image to brand image. That is the title. Right? Transfer of brand image, event image to brand image through event image sponsorship, event sponsorship. That was the title, so it is included in the first part. And look at, this is the main objective. Right? Process of event image transfer to brand image through sponsorship of sports event was evaluated. So, how the main objective of the research has been executed. Right? Now, next part is methodology. Research methods used. Look at Cricket World Cup 2003 was used to evaluate the event selected. Okay, Cricket World Cup 2003 was used. This is a paper that's very old, but in 2003 or 4 I had written this. So, Cricket World Cup 2003 was used to evaluate the transfer of event image through sponsoring brands. The brand image of all the 3 brands, these were the sponsoring brands, LG, Pepsi and Hero Honda, that were involved with the Cricket World Cup 2003 as sponsors were evaluated pre and post championship. That means it's a pre and post study. That the brand image was evaluated before the World Cup and after the World Cup. And their congruence with the World Cup image were also evaluated. That means we are not only looking at the image transfer, we are also looking at whether the congruence, pre-event congruence between the brand image and the event image, whether that affects the transfer. That means if the brand image and event image were closer, then whether then the event image would be transferred more to the brand, or when that congruence is missing. That means when the event image and the brand image are distinctly different, whether that time the image transfer would be different. Okay? So if you look at here, we found that the congruence was the least with Hero Honda. Congruence with World Cup 2003 was least with Hero Honda, and the transfer of image was also least for Hero Honda. But that would be naturally, you can't include everything. So main methodology has been included here, not the findings, methodology. That how the research was carried out. Next, this is the main finding. The major findings of the study indicate that the post-championship brand image of all the three sponsoring brands were altered. That means there was a image transfer from the event image to brand image, altered, and the congruence with the World Cup image became significantly closer. That means that alteration was towards making these brands, the brand images, closer to the event image. Right? Showing that actually the event image was transferred to the brand image. Okay? So the transfer of image to sponsoring brands is dependent directly on, this is the last one, conclusion. Last line indicates the conclusion. The transfer of image to sponsoring brands is dependent directly on the image congruence between the sponsoring brand and the event being sponsored. That is, main finding was that this image transfer is there in all, but it is higher where congruence is higher and lower where congruence is lower. So that is the conclusion. That means all the 5 areas that you need to put in an abstract are included in this. Now, this could go into 5 pages or 10 pages when you are putting it as an executive summary. Because the thesis would go into 200 pages, 300 pages. When you are writing an executive summary for that, it will go into 5 pages, 6 pages. But I can't show 5 pages, 6 pages here, so I have taken a small abstract from a research paper. Okay, the same work would have been for a PhD thesis also. But then your research methodology would go into 3 pages, 4 pages. Okay, that complete methodology has to be put in your executive summary. Basically because the purpose of abstract and the purpose of executive summary are different. Now, some of the purposes are common. There is a major difference, and that is a research paper. The purpose of an abstract research paper is to sell the research paper, generally, and to get it cited. That is, more and more people should cite it. So, if your abstract includes these 5 areas, so a person can find out, can understand what will be there in the research paper just by going through the abstract. So if a person finds that it is suitable for the work he or she is doing, then he or she would go through it and cite it. Whereas if you don't write what is included in your research paper, or if your research paper is not focused properly, nobody is going to read that abstract, and naturally nobody is going to read your paper. So no citing, and if it is say published by somebody, nobody will buy it. Right? So that's basic purpose of an abstract for a research paper. Whereas for executive summary, it is acceptance for evaluation. Your executive summary goes to an evaluator. In fact, 2 evaluators initially. And those evaluators have to see the executive summary and decide whether they can evaluate this work. That means it should be in substantially greater detail than the abstract here, because then only they can take a decision, because you have to indicate what statistical tools you have included. If a person who is evaluating thesis is not conversant with the tools that you have included, like say you have used structural equation modeling in your thesis, and the evaluator has never heard of structural equation modeling, how is that evaluator going to evaluate? So therefore the purpose of executive summary for a thesis is to get the evaluator say yes or no. And suppose if you have not indicated correctly in your executive summary your methodology in great detail, and your thesis is accepted by somebody who does not know what structural equation modeling is, what could be the comments I will tell you. And this happened, that is why I am telling. When one of my candidates was presenting his, defending his PhD work, the evaluators initially accepted because they did not know that structural equation modeling would be used. And later on, it is not that it was not there in the executive summary, there the situation was different, they did not read it, but then same thing could have happened had they read and not included in the executive summary. Now the evaluator asked, do you think if you put some dabbas, okay, and show some arrows, you can develop a model and you can test a model? These are the comments. That if you put some dabbas, okay, and some circles, and you connect them with some arrows, you think you can develop a model? So these are the comments by the evaluator. When he tried to defend, he said, I know better. I have evaluated 100 PhDs. This is your first thesis. So, and the person who is a candidate for defending becomes, he comes to defense, and it becomes very difficult for him to defend that no, structural equation modeling is an appropriate tool which is used well over to develop such models and evaluate such models. Right? So this happens. So complete details about the research methodology are essentially need to be included in your executive summary, not in the abstract as much in detail, but even in abstract you have to mention that what is the main methodology that you have used. So this is one abstract that you've seen. Now, common problems with abstracts. What are the common problems with abstracts? Now, here I am talking about only abstracts, not executive summary. Therefore, I have not written executive summary here. Right? Too long. If your abstract is a page or longer, nobody is going to read it. It should not be more than 100 words. Your abstract should not go beyond 100 words. If it is for a research paper. Right? Too much detail. You have written complete research methodology in the abstract itself, or and number of times what I see how the abstracts are prepared. The researcher has written introduction and conceptual frame review of literature. First 3 paragraphs of introduction, the researcher picks up and puts them as abstract. And the same word by word are repeated at the introduction. Same thing is repeated word by word under the introduction also. So that is no abstract at all, or that's no executive summary at all. That cannot be done, right? So, how you write is important. Too short, too brief. That means you don't write anything. Just write 3 lines. That this paper is on this topic. It's not good enough. You need to have some details about the topic, about the main objective, about the methodology used, about the main findings, about conclusion. So you need to have some, some detail. So it can't be too short. Failure to include important information. These 2 parts, objectives of research and methodology, they are the heart of your research. They cannot be excluded from your abstract. They have got to be there. And 90% abstracts that we receive for our international conference do not include them in their abstract, unfortunately. So when I'm emphasizing based on some reason. 90% of the abstracts that we receive in our international conference do not include what is the objective of the study and what is the methodology used. Maybe reason is that there is no methodology used. Right. Abstract executive summary we used interchangeably, but there are serious differences, and those differences mainly two. Main purpose of abstract is to summarize paper. And main purpose of executive summary is to present complete thesis work in brief. Complete thesis work in brief. That means it has to be chapter-wise. You need to include the summary. The executive summary has to take details from each chapter. What is included in each chapter. So abstract should be short, should only contain summary information. Executive summaries are longer, often contain chapter-wise details. That is the major difference. Okay? Otherwise, the process used in both is same. Poor abstract. Go through it. And we don't have time to go through it yet. But please go through it. You will realize what I am talking about. Neither the topic is indicated, nor the objectives are indicated, methodology is missing, and findings, conclusion, nothing is there. Right? So you can go through it in your own time. I will give this presentation to you. Look at this. What is missing? I have included the first few lines and indicated that the topic of the research paper is not known. After going through these 4-5 lines, 3-4 lines, you will realize that you can't make out what is the research topic. Okay? That is why when I am saying it's a poor abstract, there is a reason why I am saying so. And last 4 lines, and there is no mention of any conclusion. And look at the last lines. It needs to be researched further for a comprehensive conclusion. It's a real abstract. I have taken it from my own last conference. The abstract was sent for our international conference. So I have picked up from there. Right? So you find that the whole abstract has nothing to do with what is contained in the paper. This is homework. You will be preparing the abstract for the research paper that is being published, that is being read. So, just identify whether these parts are there in the abstract. Topic of the research problem, or main objective of the paper, methods used, main research findings, and paper's conclusions. Okay? Identify and highlight using different colors. Right? So that when you present, everyone is able to see that yes, so you can identify the first part with say one color, second part with second color, third part with third color, fourth part with fourth color, and so on. So that when you make presentation here last day, we are able to see whether that abstract is okay. So that we don't have to read the whole abstract to identify whether what is to be included is included or not. It will automatically be highlighted through the colors. Right? So please do that in your abstract so that we are sure that you included everything that goes into an abstract. Right, we completed 2. Let's look at the third one. Now, I have a very detailed presentation on this, and I won't go through all. I will take up this first slide, and there are a number of examples I have taken. Okay, so you can look at those examples. This is I have made self-explanatory. Introduction, number of examples are from my PhD, and if I am putting it, I am confident about my work. Right. So you can look at that and see what gets included in a introduction, what doesn't include, what doesn't get included in the introduction. Now, what you should include? Purpose of the introduction, common problems. This is the presentation. These, to locate the research in its research field. What does it mean? To locate this research in the research field. That means we need to talk about what others have done in this. That means what is the research scenario in the area in which you are carrying out the research. So is it the area that has been researched very frequently, or is it the area that is researched very rarely? Right? So that should come out through this part. Second is to document why the research being presented is important, rationally. You need to work out on the rationale for your work. Why this research? Why is it needed? Right? So based on the first part, that means when you are putting it in the research done by others, okay, that is the time when you are also getting ideas about why your area is important, or you are also indicating why what you are doing is important. So that would come under the second part, that is rationale for this work. Why whatever you are doing is important, right? And how is it going to contribute to the knowledge, existing knowledge? So that these parts, this is second part should come. Third is to state the research problem the paper will solve, right? So whatever is the research title, okay, you need to operationalize it here. Research title is a general title. You need to operationalize it. How you are going to do it in your research. Okay? So that to state the research problem, the paper will solve. And present the steps that will be taken to solve the problem. That means you do not need to write the methodology in detail. You need to just indicate how or what would be the basic process used to solve the problem. Okay? So an idea about the research methodology, not the research methodology in detail. Right? So that should also come under the introduction part. Right? So immediately if you are including the conceptual frame in the introduction. Now see, number of times introduction and conceptual frame, there are no boundaries. At times that you are clubbing them together. So in the introduction part, you set your paper in the current scenario, current research scenario, that what has been done and how, and you identify the gaps and you indicate the rationale of your research. And then under conceptual frame, you define, that is operationalization of your topic has to be done under conceptual frame. That means you define all the variables of your study under conceptual frame. Right? How those variables have been defined by different people, their definitions, your own definition for the purpose of this research. Right? You might select a definition given by somebody else and indicate that this is how you would operationalize it, or you might give your own definition for the variable, that this is how I am going to operationalize this variable in my study. Okay, see, because if you have 2, 3, 4, like say, if I am talking about the antecedents of customer loyalty. Now, as I indicated earlier, that antecedents would be very large. So, in conceptual frame, you would be identifying all those antecedents and giving the definition to all of them and how they have been defined by different people, so that you can at the end indicate your operational definition is better than all these standalone definitions, or if one of them was the best, you have adopted that as a operational definition for the variables. So that is the work that you need to do in conceptual frame. You are not developing the relationships in conceptual frame, because that is the part that you will be covering under review of literature. That part would be covered under review of literature, because whatever you review for the purpose of understanding the relationships between variables that is part of your study. Now that should be part of review of literature and not conceptual frame. So this difference between the two is that you define all the variables, what are the various variables, and suppose if there are a larger number of variables that you are not including in your study, then you need to justify what variables have been dropped and why under conceptual. Okay? And under review of literature, you would only be looking at the relationship between different variables of your study and findings of different people with respect to those relationships. That is, you are trying to evaluate the relationship between antecedents of customer loyalty and customer loyalty itself. Right? You are trying to evaluate that. So if you identify that 8 antecedents have been used by different people in different researches, that means all those 8 antecedents become initially, they become candidates for research in your research. If you want to drop any one of them, you need to justify why you have dropped. Maybe that people, they say out of 10 research, 8 researchers did not find any relationship of that antecedent with loyalty. So, since a large number of researchers have already identified that this particular antecedent does not have effect on customer loyalty, there is no point in carrying it in your research. So, you need to prepare a justification for dropping that. Right? So, 3 parts. Introduction, you should build your rationale. Purpose, I am telling you. Not everything that you include. Purpose of first part, introduction, is to develop rationale for your study. Why are you carrying out the study? Rationale for the topic that you selected. Second part, conceptual frame. To operationalize the research. That means you work out all the definitions given by others, you work out what variables have been studied by others, and you indicate what variables will be there in your study and what variables will not be there in your study and why not. Right? So that part will go into conceptual frame. And the third is review of literature. It will have a substantial coverage on what relationships have been found by others between variables and what you expect from your research. Okay, so that means the end part of review should be objectives. The end of review should be objectives of your study. Because what you expect to find from your research should be also based on the review, findings of review. Right? So objectives should be worked out based on review. So that's these 3 parts. Although I have great details I have done it in detail here because I have worked on this is the introduction I have taken from my PhD work. No, this is from a paper. This is from the PhD. No. This is from paper. PhD का मैं बात करेगा. Right? So you find that I have given number of examples. Okay, and I have given rationale indicating why this is there and why it is not there. Why it should be there, why it is not there. Right? What an introduction may contain, the scope of the problem, but the research will not address or will address, the limitations of the research can also be included in your introduction itself. The methods, models, or process that will be taken in the research and the assumptions that you would have. So I am not going into detail, you can go through them, the examples, etc. Next is literature review. I have that introduction. I have included the conceptual framework, right? So when I am talking about introduction, it also includes the conceptual frame. And literature review has been separately taken. Why write a literature review? Common mistakes, questions a literature review should answer, examples of poor and good literature review, and frequently asked questions, right? So why write a literature review? To evaluate prior work that has been done in the area of paper or thesis. To show a relationship between different existing work. Right? So, just reviewing a paper, just writing the results of a paper is not review. That means you are not writing abstract of a paper. You must analyze those results and then write. And what is the relationship of those results with others? If a researcher has found significant relationship between 2 variables, and then others have found no relationship, then you need to indicate in what circumstances those the other researchers did not find it, and in what circumstances this researcher has found relationship, so that you can put it in right context later on in your research. That if you are trying to evaluate that relationship, why you have included it? Maybe that the conditions that one researcher who found a relationship are similar to the one that you are using, and therefore you are also including that variable. Otherwise, if 9 had 9 did not find a relationship. That variable had no business to be part of your study. Okay, so you need to analyze it, and to set the context of your research, you need to write literature review, and then you need to work out your objectives. Literature review becomes a summary of existing literature. It's common mistakes. That literature review is a summary of existing literature. You write one paragraph on each paper that you review. That is the poorest form of literature review. And I have seen that in a number of PhDs. That is, you take up one paper, write a paragraph on that paper, take up another paper, write a paragraph on that, take up third paper, write a paragraph on that. That is the poorest form of literature review. Right? You start with the reference and write what has been included, and that is the review of that paper. Absolutely bad. So what you should do to carry out review of literature. Second very important aspect of literature review is that this is the area which contains maximum collaboration. First, starting from introduction to literature review. This part, based in majority of PhDs, contain about 70% plagiarism. That means 70% part gets copied from the other work. And I will tell you a recent circular that UGC has sent to all the universities and all the guides who are guiding PhD thesis. That the PhD thesis has to be accompanied by a certificate, and that certificate has to be prepared based on the report that you get from Turnitin. Right? UGC has purchased Turnitin, use of Turnitin, and provided the extension or extended it to for use to the professors who are guides. So now a PhD thesis, a soft copy has to be submitted. That is one. Two is, along with that, you need to submit a certificate indicating that the plagiarism is restricted to less than 10%, and a report from Turnitin that indeed the plagiarism is reduced to, or it is minimized to less than 10%. 1 over 15% is acceptable. And we want to do it one day, less than 10. It is going to be a Herculean task, but all those who are doing PhD, I am telling you today, your PhD is going to be rejected by your guide before submission. Yes, because your guide cannot get it submitted unless your Turnitin tells that the plagiarism is within 10%, and it is unlikely to be there below 10%. Now I will tell you how can you reduce it to less than 10%. What do we do basically when we work out on? There was a separate presentation on plagiarism which we would not have time to. So I will talk about that here when we are doing the review of literature. 1. Give credit. First thing, keep in mind, give credit. What do I mean by give credit? If you take 2 words from any text, give credit. Give a reference. Okay, in the text and at the end of the text. 1. If you are taking verbatim more than 7 words, put it in quotes. Even if you have written 20 words, 7 words are copied from the original and 13 words are yours. Put it in quotes. Because putting in quotes does not reduce your contribution. Alright? But not putting in quotes puts it in plagiarism. So, if you are taking more than 7 words from any source, put it in quotes. And reference, both. That means give credit, put it in quotes. Quotes indicate that you have copied verbatim. So, you are telling in advance, you have copied verbatim. So, you are not doing plagiarism. You are giving credit to the person who originally did it. That 1. 2, while working on conceptual frame and review of literature, you need to keep in mind that you cannot copy bits and pieces from different research papers, findings, discussion, conclusion, or abstract, and put it in your research. And then try to paraphrase, thinking that it will reduce the plagiarism. Sorry, it will not. Paraphrasing is part of plagiarism. Yes, just changing sentences, just changing tense, just changing narration does not exclude, does not save you from plagiarism. Right? Active to passive, passive to active, direct to indirect, indirect to direct is not going to reduce plagiarism. Right? Am I scaring? I need to. So, how do you save? And let me tell you, why am I talking about this? You are going to be teachers in an era when people will tear apart your work and would say he is not competent. It has already started happening. Number of vice chancellors have lost their job because they copied, they have to write their PhDs. In India, I'm talking about India, I'm not talking about US. And it is going to happen more because of this new regulation that has come. Now people are going to, they are going to put this work that so and so plagiarized. Please evaluate. There are going to be litigations now. And there will be committees, and plagiarism is very easy to establish. Printed work. You can't escape. Right? Your work is also printed, published, and others' work is also published. Can you escape? Can you say this is not my work? Or can you say it is not others' work that you copied? So how do you save yourself? If I have made my incorrect, how do you use it? Use number of columns to take the information from various sources in brief. Reason and how do you take it? Say authors. Okay. You can put year of publication. You can put year at the end. That's not an issue. Year of publication. Also, publication details. That means journal or it's a conference proceedings or whatever, or book. Okay, publication details. Then variables used. I'm not talking about topic. Variables used in the study. Okay, relationships between variables. And then when I am saying variables, it includes demographics or category variables. Okay, it also includes category variables. Now, suppose your study is to evaluate antecedents to customer loyalty. Right? Suppose your purpose is to evaluate the antecedents to customer loyalty. Now, there are 7-8 variables under antecedents and 1 variable customer loyalty. So, in all, 8-9 variables of your study. And you need to, in review, you need to include all these variables and interrelationship between these variables. Interrelationship between these variables. So, therefore, when I am reviewing, I will take care that the variables used here should be, at least one of those variables should be from the antecedents or the customer loyalty. And therefore, when I am including the work, that work should be related to the work that I am doing in the PhD or research paper, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. Alright. So, authors, year of publication, publication details. Now, year of publication I am writing so that you don't go beyond 20-25 years. As far as possible, you should restrict yourself to last 25 years, unless some work is considered as sacrosanct or Bible. That say, you find some papers become so important in that area because they established the relationship initially and they are quoted everywhere. Other than those, you should restrict yourselves to last 20-25 years. Right? So, that is why a year of publication. And later on you would be reading this for developing your reference. And publication details means the journal, volume, number, pagination, those details. Okay? Variables used in the study and relationships found. Now, under relationships, you must list name of the variable, arrow, second variable, significant, insignificant. At this moment, you don't need to write too much. Just write one variable, arrow, second variable, significant, insignificant. That's it. Because if you write more, you are going to copy it. And it will be part of your revision. So don't write more. Just write variables, arrow, significant, insignificant. Alright? And if there is a context, you need to write that. In what context this work has been done? That means, context when I am saying, it is economic environment, social environment, your political environment, and so on. That means the environment. When I am saying context, it is the environment in which the research is carried out. So that later on, if there are differences in the results, okay, contradictions in the results, you are able to justify why those contradictions are there. Now, once you have done that, after that, you can use this or this basically to list in ascending or descending order. Column, one of the column, this and this, can be used basically this to put that work in ascending or descending order. Now, what will happen? That variables would club together. If a relationship between one variable and second variable is found in one study and same variables have been used in others also, they will all come together. Now form paragraphs based on this. And you have already indicated whether the relationship was significant or insignificant. Okay? So while working on that paragraph, you write that these two variables were studied by and these people found significant relationship, these people did not find significant. And context, use context to fill in why that first group of people found significant and second group of people did not find significant. Okay, now you have not copied a single word till now. And give reference to these people from where you have taken the study. Right, so the reference in the text and reference at the end of the text. You will be saved. Right, so use Excel as the basis for working on your review. I know if you were to use 20 papers earlier to review for your research work, say for a research paper, now you would need 150. Because if you want to write 3 pages of review, you would need about 100 research papers. You won't be able to write 3 pages from just 15-20 research papers. That's the difference. But then, nobody would be able to point fingers towards you that you have regrets. And the quality of your review would be far superior to the one that you may have been carrying out till now. Alright, so please do that.
Sir, can we take country of research of country?
When I am saying context, not country. Context includes everything. Context when I am saying political environment, legal environment, your economic environment or business environment, social environment. When I am saying, the country is automatically included. Okay, you need to see how do you write environment. It may not directly be given. Research paper would not talk about environment basic, like that this was the environment. Research paper will tell that this was done in US. Okay? So that means you need to, in context, you need to write US. The setting was US. From there you would work out in 2000 what was the environment in US. So you can justify based on the knowledge that you might have about that, or if you don't have, go back and check.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can I request you to elaborate somewhat more on conceptual framework?
Okay.
As
I have no problem. See, in conceptual framework, you need to identify the variables. See, you have a topic, isn't it? That topic indicates what one or two variables would be listed, and the other variables you would group, probably, so that your topic becomes sleek. Now, you need to elaborate on that like say antecedents is a word, very factors, antecedents. These are the words that are very commonly used. Okay? Or effects. Right? So, these are the words that are very commonly used. So, manifestations. Right? So, these are the words. Now, these words have to be elaborated in conceptual. That means antecedents means all the antecedents that anybody might have used. That means any variable that has been found to contribute to customer loyalty has to be included in the antecedents. Okay? Any variable, positive or negative effect, all variables that have been found to contribute to the customer loyalty have to be included. Right? In your conceptual frame, not study. In your conceptual frame. And then you need to work on what definition, how those variables have been defined by various people.
So then how can we differentiate between the conceptual framework and literature review? Because there is a very...
I said no definitions to be included in the review of literature.
Okay.
No definitions to be included in review of literature. I said that. Yeah. So review of literature would only concentrate on relationships. Okay? That is, what are the relationships found between variables? It will concentrate only on that. And conceptual frame would concentrate only on operationalizing the variables. That means working on definitions given by various people and your own operational definition. If you want to identify somebody else's definition as your operational definition, this is up to you. You can do that. Or you can develop your own operational definition and indicate that this is the operational definition I am going to use for my study. Right? So that work will be conceptual frame, and conceptual frame should lead to, conceptual frame and introduction. You can club. Okay? So that introduction is generally a page or two. If you put conceptual frame along with that, it will become a proper chapter. Okay? And therefore, you need to also work out rationale for your study. So at the end of the conceptual frame, it will be a rationale for your study. Why this study is important.
But some others do state that conceptual framework, after the conceptual framework, the research design comes up. So it is also being mentioned by some of the authors. So that is why I was a bit confused about it.
See, why this is perfectly okay. Research design should come immediately after the conceptual frame. Reason is that your research design will come after the conceptual frame, because, as I said, antecedents to, you continue using that. This side is, say, customer loyalty. And this side are antecedents. Okay. You have number of antecedents. Alright. Now others have found, say, 10 antecedents. You want to use 3 of them. So what will be your research model? Your model would be customer loyalty and those 3 antecedents that you are going to use. And if any mediating variable is to be included in your study, that would be indicated here.
That will form the research design.
That is your design. Okay? Clear? So, after conceptual frame, your model should come, that how you are going to do it, right? So that's what conceptual frame needs to establish. Then your review of literature. Again, you looked at only that. Let's look at the research methodology. I have included a lot of details in this. Next, and I have included a separate presentation on literature. Okay, go through that one. That gives you in detail. That is why I have restricted the details in this presentation. That's a separate presentation. You can go through that. Third part is literature review. Okay, we completed this. Methodology. Fourth part is methodology. Now, essential components of methodology. These are the essential components of methodology. Type of study, research design views, sample design. Now, sample design is part of research design. You can include in there that also. You need not separately mention it, but then it has to come. Therefore, I have mentioned it separately because number of times you talk about research design, you would not talk about the sample design. It has to be. It is part of the design. Next, tools used for data collection and tools used for data analysis. Right? These are described differently in synopsis and in your three basic types: exploratory, descriptive, and cluster. You need to write whether you are right, because it will indicate towards the methodology used. Because if you are talking about exploratory, that means either the topic itself might not have been very clear, or the objectives may not have been clear. That means you would be working on developing objectives. When you are working on an exploratory study, you might be identifying the objectives themselves in the as the outcome of the research. If you are talking about descriptive study, you are describing without changing the values of the variables. So whatever variables are, whatever value they exist, you are looking at the relationship, or you are looking at those variables separately, descriptive. And in causal, you would manipulate one set of variables called independent variables and see the effect of those independent variables on dependent variables. This is the basic difference between the three. So whatever work you are doing, whether it will fall under exploratory, descriptive, or causal, you can identify and write. So the study is exploratory, or the study is causal, or the study is descriptive. Okay, one sentence enough. Now, how the study is exploratory, or how the study is descriptive, or how the study is causal has to be explained here. That means, if you are mentioning the study is causal, that means you would also write that relationship between these variables as dependent variables and these variables as independent variables has been evaluated, indicating it is cause and effect study. So therefore, whatever you have said causal, it is correct. If you are writing descriptive, you would write that these are the variables. Generally, you would use variables would be categorical in case of descriptive, so that they don't vary. You can write that these are the variables, existing variables. This is the dependent variable. The relationship or effect of these variables on these variables would be evaluated, or a single variable in different settings will be evaluated. Descriptive. Exploratory, that the study explores. It starts from the identification of objectives, and then later on, maybe that you develop some hypothesis in the study itself as you progress. So in the methodology, you will write that hypothesis will be established on the basis of results that you get. Like say, you are carrying out factor analysis on the basis of factor analysis in your research. Now, it can come under all three, but majorly exploratory. Right? That you would identify number of factors. Relationship between factors and relationship of factors with the overall variable can only be identified after the factor analysis has been done. Exploratory factor analysis has been done. So therefore, in the methodology, you would write that the relationship, the hypothesis would be established after identifying the factors. Right? So which factor would have which relationship with the dependent variable? The hypothesis on that would be worked out once the factor analysis is complete. It cannot be worked out before. Alright, so in exploratory, when you write that this is the exploratory work and how it is exploratory, when you explain, this is how you would be writing. Okay, next part is research design. Now, under research design, one, you would first you will be talking about whether it's a time series or study done at a given point in time. Okay, either it's a time series study or it is a study done at a given point in time. That means data has been collected simultaneously on all the variables, or it is data collected at various points in time on the variables. Okay, that is one part. Second part you would write in this would be that how would you divide the respondents? That means when you are carrying out study, when you are collecting data number of points in time or first point in time, you can indicate whether that if it is an experimental study, you can talk about before and after only. There are a number of research, the experimental studies that you can talk about. And number of times we feel that we are not doing any experiment, whereas we are actually doing a field experiment. When you are collecting data in field, number of times you feel you are not doing any experiment, whereas you are actually doing an experiment. Like say, when you collect data from consumer satisfaction or customer satisfaction, and you establish about a particular product, that this is the product, and you might show some advertisement or you might indicate that this product has been sponsored by or it is promoted by so and so, etc. And then you collect data. You have already changed the perception, or you have already changed the way the respondent is going to respond. That means if you are doing that, you are collecting data after intervention. You have already done the intervention and collecting data. So it's a field study or field experiment, basically. But if you just put a questionnaire, don't talk about it, and at one point in time you just ask number of statements, you might not consider it as a field study. Right? So the setting in which you collect data may actually convert itself into a field study, or it may not convert itself into a field study. So whether you are doing an experimental study, or experimental studies are by nature causal. Okay, you don't carry out experimental studies on single variables. It is always multiple variables, more than one, and you always develop relationship between. So experimental studies are always by nature causal. But all causal studies need not be experimental. All causal studies need not be experimental. What I am trying to say is that you might collect data on various variables at one given time without any intervention, and develop relationship between them, cause and effect relationship between them, and that effect of the intervention comes because of the variability between respondents. Okay, variability between respondents. So instead of varying the variable through controlling the environment, you are varying the variable through changing respondent. Right? So it amounts to a field study, though it is not called field study, and therefore I said that causal studies need not actually be based on experiments. Okay? So you need to mention that research design used here. that how are you going to carry out this research. Now, further to this, there are some established designs. So whether it conforms to one of those completely randomized block design, factorial design, okay? So is it conforming to one of those designs? If you are doing an experiment, you can indicate that. Even if you are not doing, factorial has become a very common design today, without experiments also. And reason that you are varying the respondents, and because of that, you consider that equivalent to the field study. Like say, in your study, gender and educational background are the two category variables. Now, in your research design, you would indicate how many respondents would be male, how many respondents would be female. Within male, how many respondents would have each educational background. That means you will have a design like this. Say, suppose this is gender and this is, say, educational qualification, education. Gender, male, female, and say first set, second set, third set of educational background. Okay, so number of respondents here, and here. Now this is a factorial design if you are keeping the number of respondents equal in each of those cells. Okay, if you are keeping the respondents equal in each of those cells, it's a complete, it is a perfect factorial design. But if the numbers are different, it still conforms to factorial design with unequal cell size. Okay, equal cell size and equal cell size. Right? But you need to write how many respondents are there in this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, and this cell. Right? So while writing your design, you need to also mention this. That means to which category, how many, or from which category, how many respondents have you going to take, and how they are distributed. Now that itself can indicate whether it's a factorial design, randomized block design. Randomized block design would be if I take instead of two variables, if I take only one, it can become randomized block design that I will be randomizing within the blocks. That means educational background 1, 2, 3. First educational background I will pick up say 50, second educational background another 50, third educational background another 50. So it is randomized block design, randomization within blocks. And completely randomized means I take the population, I am not looking at age, gender, education, nothing. And income, I am collecting data and using it for establishing relationship between variables. It is completely randomized. If I am using, randomization can be used only if I am using what sampling techniques? Probability. Only if you are using probability techniques I can call randomization. Otherwise I can't call randomization. Okay? So if I am not using randomization, I need to justify. So I will be coming to that group. First, let us research design. When you look at, you need to justify if your design does not conform to the established norms. Okay, so that means when you are not conforming to a particular thing, you need to justify why you are doing that. Okay, you need to indicate what is the need to go away from a established norm or established design. Okay, you want to find out, or say your population does not have, like say I said equal cells. Your population doesn't have equal proportion of all the respondents, like educational background. What is the proportion of say postgraduates, proportion of graduates, proportion of matriculates in your population? You would find maybe proportion of matriculates 70%, 60%, and graduates maybe 15%, and postgraduates maybe 5%. So how can you take equal? You can't take equal. It has to be unequal, and therefore you can put that line justification that the proportion based on educational background from census has been maintained. Right? One single line would be enough. That in last census, whatever was the proportion of these educational backgrounds has been maintained. And that's okay. Same is the case with, say, male female. Instead of, say, you are doing a study in manufacturing organization, and you have taken gender as one of the variables. But you would find in manufacturing not more than 5% would be female. In majority of, not all, but in majority of manufacturing organizations, you would find females less than 5% or 5% only. How can you have 50% male, 50% female in such samples? So, but you need to write that justification. Why? Okay? So that you know that your sample is right, representative of or representation of your population. So your design basically indicates that it can be generalized. The designs are used for generalization, so that your results can be generalized. Now, next is sample design. I indicated earlier that it has to have 4 or 5 parts: the population, sample frame, the sampling technique, sample size, and the element. From where or from whom have you collected data? Okay, I probably discussed this, so I need not discuss today. Yesterday, while talking about process, I was talking about these population, sample frame, sampling techniques. I did not work out, so I just spent a minute or two. Total sampling techniques can be divided into 2 parts: probability and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling can only be used where the list of population is available. List of complete population is available. There only the probability sampling can be used. And probability sampling. What are the different probability sampling techniques that can be used? Simple random, stratified, cluster. Quota is not probability sampling. Quota comes under non-probability. Alright? So these 3 would come under probability. Quota is a non-probability sampling technique. The difference between stratified sampling and quota sampling is that in quota sampling you do not use randomization. In stratified sampling you use randomization. Okay, that's the basic difference. Otherwise, these 2 sampling techniques are similar otherwise, other than randomization. So therefore, quota sampling and stratified sampling are similar. Only difference is because you are not using randomization in quota sampling, it is a non-probability sampling. Alright, so 3 probability samplings, non-probability samplings, quota sampling, somebody has already said. Judgmental, convenience, somebody said. Whose convenience? Researcher's convenience. And you still call it research. Sorry, that is not okay. Convenience was popularized by somebody, I don't want to name, and please don't use that word. There is no such sampling technique that you can call convenience sampling. Nothing like convenience. In research, there is no convenience, and specifically not the convenience of the researcher in any case. Researcher is the last person whose convenience will be seen. Right? So, don't talk about convenience. No convenience sampling, judgmental or purposive. So, based on purpose of the study, you are selecting the sample, or based on judgment. Now, these 2 necessarily ensure that representation is there. That means you have to talk about population, what is the proportion of different people in the population, and what proportion have you taken in your sample. You need to write whenever you are using judgmental or purposive. Whenever you are using convenient, you are not going to do that. You are just going to say that I have used 100 people, whoever came, I could access, I have taken data from them. Then that research would be useful to whomever you want. Right? It will not be useful to anybody else. Right? Sample design. So that we talked about sample size. I worked out a formula also yesterday, and I said out of these two, thumb rule is still better. I still use thumb rule because I know that formula is a very tedious process, that you need to work out that number of times during the process of data collection, which is very, very difficult for researchers and generally not under control also. And sample elements, depending upon what kind of data you are collecting, you would decide who would give that data. A person or element who is suitable to provide that data. If you are asking for organizational data, who is a suitable element? That element is organization, but then the data may be provided by the head of the organization or somebody who has control over that data. Okay, so you have to clearly write, okay, who that within organization also. If you say organizations would be the sample elements, within organization who is going to give you that data, you need to identify. Okay, you just can't say that the data was obtained from organization. Right? So from whom? How can you justify that the data was perfect? That whatever you have collected, that you have not gone to a worker and asked him what is your profit and written that this is the profit the organization is earning, instead of obtaining the year-end statements from the finance department. So you need to identify from whom you have collected data. Tools used for data collection. Now again, this is a very, very important part. One is that you can use various tools for data collection. It is not only questionnaire is one of the tools, but in majority of the studies that your general studies that you carry out, not organizational studies. Majority of the general studies that you carry out, you use survey. And since you are using survey, you use questionnaire as one of the tools. But otherwise, there are so many tools that can be used for observation. There are a number of mechanical tools or machines that can be used for observation, collecting observation data. Okay, and there are so measurement tools can be machines. It can be simple check sheets. It can be questionnaires, right? So there could be a number of different tools. It could be just financial statements that have been prepared by somebody else, secondary data. Alright, so whatever tool you are going to use, you need to write and justify. Suppose you are going to carry out a survey and you are going to use a questionnaire. Now the variables of your study have already been studied by so many people. There is no point in reinventing the wheel. If the questionnaire is existing, you need to take that questionnaire, see if it is suitable for the environment in which you are going to carry out the study. If it is not suitable, see which statements are not suitable and change them. Now, who should see that? Which statements are suitable, which are not suitable for the environment in which you are carrying out study, and then replace them with new statements. You need to justify, that means you need to use experts. Okay? So that you need to use experts to indicate that these statements were not considered suitable in Indian environment and therefore replaced with equivalent statements or statements that are suitable in Indian context. So you might adapt some questionnaires, you might use them exactly as they are, standardized questionnaires if you find that the environment is similar and or environment is not going to make a difference in the study, or you might design your new questionnaire. When you want to design a new questionnaire, yesterday I think we looked at questionnaire design. We have looked at. So if you are designing a new questionnaire, adhere to those and you will be able to design a good questionnaire. You need to, at the end, before you actually go for the comprehensive survey, you need to evaluate the questionnaire on a small sample. So pilot study has to be carried out so that you know that your questionnaire is okay. Although, if you have done a correct job, reliability validity of the questionnaire is beyond doubt. It will automatically be there, provided your questionnaire is okay. But you need to indicate from where you have taken these statements, why you have taken these statements. If you have omitted some statements, why? If you have included some fresh statements, why? That means, if you take statements from various studies, you can write reference in front of each one of them. That from where you have taken a particular statement. Right? if you have developed your own statements, self-designed. You can write self-designed in front of that. So that the questionnaire itself indicates, when you are putting it in your study, that these are the, out of say 15 statements, 10 statements are standardized, you have taken from various resources, and 5 statements you have self-designed, or 1 statement you have self-designed, or none has been self-designed. So it should be directly visible from the questionnaire itself. This is where we again plagiarize. We use others' questionnaires and do not give credit to people whose questionnaires we are using. So please don't do that again, it is plagiarism. Right? So tools used for data collection, you need to write. Tools used for data analysis. Okay, all the tools that you are going to use from the time you are standardizing your questionnaire, that means you are evaluating the reliability, validity of your questionnaire from then onwards. Whatever tools you are using. Now, how to align these, or how to sequence them? First part, the results should have 3 parts. Tools used for data. So, okay, I will be doing that in results. So, you need to write whatever tools you are going to use for analysis, and it should be with respect to all the objectives. If you have listed 5 objectives, 5 tools at least, and for each objective you might use more than 1. So there you write more than 1, because tools are related to hypothesis, and each objective can result into multiple hypotheses. So if there are multiple hypotheses, you might use more than 1 tool to satisfy an objective. And if you use a single hypothesis to operationalize the objective, you might use a single tool. So basically, as soon as you have written objectives, further part will all be related to the objectives. Right? Whether it is selection of tools, analytical tools, whether the results should also be displayed in the same order as your objectives. First objective should be your global objective. Okay, the overall. Right? So the first part of the results, and now forget about this is over. I am coming to results now. I have worked out in detail, so you can go through that. Results. Generally, it can be divided in 3 parts. First part would be related to standardization of the questionnaire, evaluation of the questionnaire. That means reliability, etc. Okay, and exploratory factor analysis used. That is exploratory factor analysis nowadays is used also for establishing reliability and validity. Right? So therefore, exploratory factor analysis, even confirmatory factor analysis can be part of the first. That means establishment or standardization of your questionnaire. Even your confirmatory factor analysis is part of standardization of your questionnaire. Right? Next part is your global objective. Say you want to establish relationship between various variables in the study. Right? So you will indicate all the results related to that. Your global objectives will come next. And then you will have detailed objectives or sub-objectives. So all the results related to a sub-objectives would come next. So questionnaire, all the tools related to the questionnaire first, global objectives next, and sub-objectives next. This is how you lay out results. And final few pages in your thesis, in the results, should include major findings. You should summarize this chapter, because this chapter is very long generally. It spans into 50, 60, 100 pages. So a person who wants to read this should not need to read the whole PhD. 1 page or 2 pages should suffice, and that is the major findings. Summarize the major findings at the end of the results chapter. You can also include discussion in the results chapter itself, or organize discussion as a separate chapter. Now discussion is again major findings of your study given in the essay form. Okay? Major findings of your study given in the essay form along with referencing. along with referencing. That means major findings put in right flow, referenced. Each of your findings supported or contradicting the previous findings. Right? So that has to be put in discussion. It can either be organized at the end part of the results, or it can be organized as a separate chapter. Depending upon how much can you write in discussion, you will decide whether it will be part of results or it will be. Don't just put it as a separate chapter if you are writing only 2 pages. Don't do it. The discussion should span into at least 4 or 5 pages for PhD thesis to justify a separate chapter. Otherwise, include it at the end of the results chapter. Okay? Discussion: what are the relationship, trends, globalization, generalization among the results? What are the exceptions to these patterns or generalizations? And what are the likely causes of the deviation from the previous results? Now, this is what you need to include in the discussion. You can read this in your own time because I have a detailed list, so you can go through what is to be included in the discussion. But in general, I have talked about what needs to go into the discussion. Before I go into conclusion, there is one part that I did not list here, but that is absolutely important, and that is limitations of your study. There is a new trend world over today, writing limitations in terms of direction for future research. Writing limitations in terms of direction for future research. Now, don't hide your limitations in the garb of indicating that this I have not done this, so future researchers should do this. No, that's not okay. What I have done related to my study, I have completed, and further research should be done in other areas. Okay, that's the first part that I would like to make. Second part is that you don't have to write limitations in negative sense. Limitations do not necessarily indicate negativity. Okay? Limitations indicate that what was not under your control while doing this study. So you need to mention all that, what was not under your control and could be confounding the results. Results may have some effect of the environment or some variables that you have not taken as part of study, and therefore these results have to be taken in light of those. Right? So you need to consider it as a negative part, that you've not done this or you've not done that. That because of whatever limitations, resource, time, or external factors, you not be able to do some of those things. So you must indicate that while generalizing results, these are the areas that need to be kept in mind. That means you are talking about environment when you conducted this study in your limitations. This was the environment for your study, and therefore generalization is limited to this environment. Okay, and it is not beyond this environment. That should go into limitations. Okay? And conclusion, this is a lens of your PhD, and as important as any other part, in fact more. It should be sequenced in same sequence of objectives. Generally, people start writing major findings and then or they write future direction under the conclusion, or they become philosophical and write some philosophical things in the conclusion. Nothing of that sort should be part of conclusion. Conclusion should indicate what you've done, and it should be in the same sequence in which the objectives have been written. That means when you work on your conclusion, start from first objective. How have you been fulfilled? You need not list the objectives again. Now don't do that mistake. first objective this, how I fulfill. No, it is childish. You don't need to write objectives, but indicate through the description how you fulfill the first objective in the first para, second objective, second para, third para, and like that, how all the objectives have been fulfilled. That's it. And major findings should be at the end. Last few lines, last couple of lines should include major findings. That means repetition. In conclusion itself, you have repetition. That means you wrote the work that you've done in findings under all the 5 objectives, and 1 or 2 lines indicating what you want to say about this research, which is different from others. What is contribution of this research to the knowledge? That means major finding of this research in 1 or 2 lines, not more than that. You can write. So that is conclusion. So this is what PhD thesis needs to there. I think I have taken longer than what I was given time. I was told I should take no more than an hour. I think I have taken more than 2 hours. But then I thought it is important to understand what goes into thesis, what doesn't go into thesis, and all of you have some confusion, so I thought it will be worthwhile to look at it. And this presentation will be part of your kit, so don't worry about it. All right. Next 1 hour. Yeah, references. There are references styles. Okay, last one, references and annexures. After conclusion, there are 2 parts left, and that is references and annexure. Under references, you would write references in one of the styles, and those are popularly accepted styles. 3 styles are popularly accepted. Okay, 3 styles are popularly accepted: SBR, the SBR style, the IEEE style, and the APA style. These are the 3 styles that are commonly used world over. Okay, APA, our business review, and the IEEE. These are standardized referencing styles, and I will give you example, one more example on board. Instead of and these styles are part of your kit. Your referencing styles are part of your kit. I have given complete styles. That means because you will be working on any one of them. So I will work out one reference for each one of them and tell you what are the major differences, and then you can go through these referencing styles from the the presentations that are some PDF files are there, and I have taken from the source, direct source. From IEEE I have taken their style, from SBR I have taken their style, and from APA website I have taken their style. So these are authenticated, their own PDF files. So you can go through them, and I will just work out one example so that you understand the difference. Then SBR. Okay? APA. What is APA? American Psychological Association. American Psychology Association or Psychological Association. APA. And IEEE? Electrical and electronics. Okay. So IEEE and SBR we already know how this is done. Right. APA style. I'm going to work out. I will be listing a reference from our own journal. APA style starts with first author in. First author would be written surname first. Okay, in APA style, surname first, comma. Then you can write abbreviations or full name, whatever you want. It doesn't make a difference. Again, comma. Next author. Okay, say like Upmanyu, Nishya, Now, year of publication. Full stop. Okay? After this, full stop. Now write the topic of research. And the topic of research, I'll be working out from there. I'm writing not the real one. Antecedents of customer loyalty. In banking industry. Okay, full stop. At the end of the topic period, starting of the topic period, end of the topic period, right? Then there are variations. You can write volume, VOL dot, whatever is the volume, say volume 3, number 2, comma, PP, pages. If a single page is there, only P, multiple pages, PP, dot, say 21 to 35, full stop. Okay, now I will explain this.
So journal name of the journal.
Oh, I'm sorry, name of the journal has to be there before this. Say International, Prestige International Journal of IT and Management. And full form has to be there. Okay, comma, and then volume. Okay, Prestige International Journal of IT and Management, comma, then volume and number, comma, PP. Now this, there is a variation because this is basically, you find it has been adapted from Harvard Business Review. It has also come in APA now. But in APA, basically, this is the format that is more popular. 3. The outside bracket indicates volume and within bracket indicates number. Every year, all the journals take out one volume every year. And in that volume, there may be 2, 4 or 12, whatever number of copies they bring out, editions they bring out in that volume. That is number. Okay? So, 3 indicates third year or third volume, and within that volume, if it is quarterly, there will be 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If it is yearly, there is 1, then you don't need to write that. Volume itself becomes number. And in when it is biannual, 1 and 2, and so on. So number. So this is more popular than this elaboration. Elaboration is more popular in SBR. Okay, this is the way you write in APA, comma, and then PP. Okay, so this is how you work out. Now, what is the difference in SBR and this? One, period goes. No period in SBR. And no comma. This goes into double quotes. Here it is comma. Volume is written either full or VOL. You don't write like this in Harvard. Number also. Okay? And then PP. Year would be there only. Okay? So major differences in terms of one, period is removed from all the places. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Wherever period was there, it is removed. Okay? Only in case of your research paper being published in a edited book, a period book. After the editors, okay, name of the edited book, or in editor's name, then name of the edited book, and then period. Otherwise, in Harvard on the comma. Okay, 1. 2 is, if there are more, see in APA, we will write the names of in reference. This is the end of the text reference, mind you. Reference would be within text and at the end of the text. Right now I am talking about end of the text referencing. Okay, I will tell you how to put it in the text. Okay, so at the end of the text, in Harvard and APA, the basic differences that we worked out, and the number of the authors, if it is 6 or more, in Harvard you can put et al. After third author. If more than 6 authors are there, you write 3 authors and then put et al. Whereas in APA, that is not acceptable. You write all the names, even if there are 14. Okay? So these are major differences in APA and Harvard. Now we will work on.
Comma would not be used between the surname and name of the second author.
No, it will.
No, Upmanyu and Mr. And so
There also it will be used. There also it will be used. Comma between the surname and initial would always be there. Whether we are doing the initial full or only initial name, or initial alphabets. Okay? Now, how to change it to IEEE? In IEEE, initials first and the surname later. That means this would change to SS Barker, comma, next would change to Mr. Upmanyu, here would go there would be a comma here, right? Now, only books would come under quotes and research paper titles would not come under quotes in IEEE. Okay, so it was a research paper, so this will not come in quote. Okay. Now, the year, say a comma would be there, journal name would be there, this would be full, volume number, PP, and year can be included here, before PP. Here would be the year 2013. Or just within comma, you can just put comma, before and after. A comma before and comma after the year. 2013. At times, there is a, you can put August, September, etc. month also there. Okay, and you may not write the number here. Volume this and August 2013 or that way. Okay, or first quarter, third quarter, second quarter. In IEEE that is permitted. And number. Here, say it was listed as the fourth reference in the text, so 4 would come here also. There will be direct correspondence between that and this. And all the references would be listed in the same same order. 1. 2 is a reference might appear twice, thrice in IEEE. Because the number of times a reference appears, you are going to give number. Either you give same number, then it will appear at the end in 1. But if you give different numbers, same would appear under different numbers, then you can write hybrid. That is, reference has already been included in the referencing elsewhere. Right? So you don't need to rewrite the same reference. So both styles are acceptable. That is, as many times as the reference appears, you give a different number. And when that number comes, you write just hybrid. That this reference has already been included under some other reference. But the author's name would be there. Author's name and then hybrid. Not without author's name, otherwise you would not be able to connect. Right? So that is how these are major differences in the three styles. And the minor differences, that is for book, how it is written, because for a journal, the name of the journal has to be put in italics or bold. Whichever style you use. Okay? Whether it is Harvard Business or APA or IEEE, the name of the journal would come in italics or bold. Now, in case of publication in a journal, publication of the book, name of the book would become italics, not the publisher. And in the reference for book, publication place of publication comes before the publisher. So, place of publication colon publisher. This is how it is organized. Right? So, you can go through the referencing styles, and then if you have any problems, we have 2 more days we can discuss.